At 72, Susan Day finally speaks the truth about David Cassidy. Susan Day was born Susan Hollock Day on December 10, 1952, in Pekin, Illinois. She moved through childhood with a reticent elegance and effortless beauty that would one day characterize her presence on screen. Her early life was filled with both promise and struggle. Having lost her mother at a tender age, Day shifted with her family to New York, where she was brought up by her father, a newspaper editor. The mix of intellectualism from her father's journalistic experience and her own sensitivity provided her with a distinct depth which came to influence her acting later. Before she ever dreamed of becoming a TV star, Susan was a model, featured in teen publications like 17, whose wide-eyed innocence and composure caught the attention of casting agents. Her breakthrough occurred suddenly when she was selected to play Laurie Partridge on the popular TV show The Partridge Family, 1970 to 1974. Susan was just 17 years old when she had no experience as an actress, but her own naturalness and low-key charm immediately told. As Laurie, the wholesome, witty, and musically talented daughter of the Partridge Family, Day became an icon of early 1970s TV. The series not only made her a household name, but also turned her into a teen idol who was revered by millions of fans around the globe. The on-screen and off-screen chemistry with co-star David Cassidy was unmistakable, but their real-life relationship was more complex than anyone knew. Day maintained a remarkable level of dignity in the face of her overnight fame, even as the burden of Hollywood began to take its toll on her. When The Partridge Family concluded, Day had to overcome the teen idol status she had gained from her early career. Eager to be seen as a serious actress, she started to seek out more mature and sophisticated roles. She starred in television films like Mary Jane Harper Cried Last Night, 1977, where she played an emotional young mother with mental illness problems. The raw power of her performance amazed critics and established that she was much more than a mere pretty face. Day continued to develop as an actress during the late 1970s and early 1980s, as she accepted ambitious projects that were designed to exhibit emotional depth and maturity. Her career peaked when she was cast as Grace Van Owen on the highly acclaimed legal drama L.A. Law, 1986 to 1992. This position was a turning point in Day's career. As the smart, ambitious, and empathetic deputy district attorney, who then becomes a judge, she dominated the screen with quiet strength. Her performance brought her a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a television drama and multiple Emmy nominations. The success of L.A. Law ensured Susan Day's place as one of the most respected actresses on television in the 1980s and early 1990s. Not only was her performance on the program an acting triumph, but it was also a benchmark for women on television, as she redefined how professional women characters might be developed: smart, multifaceted, and human. In 1992, Susan Day contributed another impressive credit to her varied career when she filled in as host for a special episode of Saturday Night Live. It was a significant milestone that proved her openness to comedy and live work, two fields not typically a part of her earlier dramatic endeavors. Hosting SNL was a high-profile assignment usually reserved for actors at the peak of their recognizability or those looking to refamiliarize themselves with a new fan base. For Day, already a household name through The Partridge Family and L.A. Law, it was a nostalgic gesture towards her long-standing fame and a demonstration of her range. Later in the same year, Day came on board a new challenge by co-starring in the CBS sitcom Love and War, written by Diane English, who is perhaps most famous for writing and producing Murphy Brown. The series revolved around romantic and professional tension between a boisterous newspaper columnist, Jay Thomas, and Day's character, Wally Porter, an urbane restaurateur. This part represented a visible change for Day, who was transitioning from legal drama to lighter comedy. At first, Day's inclusion was viewed as a wise casting decision that could temper Thomas's raw comedic intensity with her poise and charm. But even though the show had promise, Love and War faced creative turmoil within its early stages. By 1993, just one season into the show, producers surprisingly decided to recast Day with actress Annie Potts. Rumor was that the main reason for Day's exit was a lack of on-screen chemistry between Thomas and Day. Entertainment publications implied that both actors were talented enough individually, but that their combination didn't create the romantic or comedic chemistry the show needed. Although this move was disappointing for viewers, Day made the transition admirably and without public scandal, proving once more her professionalism and maturity. Far from retiring from the public eye following Love and War, Day focused on more mature and socially relevant projects. In 1993, she produced as well as played in the TV movie Lies and Lullabies, subsequently retitled Sad Inheritance, for home video release. The movie addressed one of the most tragic and taboo problems of the time, pregnant women and drug addiction. Day acted out a cocaine-dependent pregnant woman fighting to accept her affliction and the terrible effect it could have on her child. Her acting was incredibly moving and lauded for its honesty and bravery. Susan Day's love life, though much less in the public eye than her profession, helped to form the person she became, managing the intense realm of Hollywood and seeking emotional security and discretion. Her earliest marriage was to Leonard "Lenny" Hershen in 1976, an experienced Hollywood agent significantly older than Susan. Day was only starting to move away from her Laurie Partridge persona at the time and into more adult acting work. Hershen's calm nature and industry knowledge helped ground Day and offer advice in her early years. There were issues in the marriage, though, brought about by their difference in age, differing career aspirations, and Day's increasing need for autonomy. By the late 1970s, she was also coming into her own as a serious actress ready to stake out her career and her life on her own terms. While Hershen remained working behind the scenes representing clients, the stresses of Hollywood, coupled with their differing career ambitions, ultimately put a strain on their relationship. The pair split in 1981 after a 5-year union, although they remained close through their daughter, Sarah Day, who was born in 1978. Despite the split, Susan and Lenny were said to share a mutual respect co-parenting arrangement, putting Sarah's happiness above everything else. Motherhood for Day became one of the defining aspects of her existence, often dictating her personal and professional decisions. Years afterwards, after well over a decade of concentrating on her career and bringing up her daughter, Susan fell in love once more. In 1988, she wedded Bernard Safransky, a prosperous television producer and executive who had labored extensively within the industry. Safransky was famous for creating daytime soap operas like Guiding Light and As the World Turns, and this provided him with a profound knowledge of the entertainment industry that was equal to Day's own as an actress. In contrast to her initial marriage, which was overshadowed by the voyeuristic public interest of Hollywood, her marriage to Safransky remained far more private. The pair decided to live outside the spotlight, appreciating secrecy and a quiet way of life. They settled into a low-key and lasting marriage, shying away from the tabloid gossip and scandals that tend to dog celebrity relationships. Through the decades, Susan Day and Bernard Safransky have stuck together, an indication of their mutual respect, communication, and common sense. Their relationship has been characterized by those who know them as solid and lasting, founded on shared values and a need for an ordinary life outside Hollywood's bright lights. Day's distrust of the acting profession in the early 2000s was also a function of her increasing desire for solitude and her commitment to family life. Though she made appearances at industry functions or the Partridge Family or Law reunions from time to time, she and Safransky have largely lived a strictly private life from the relentless scrutiny of the entertainment world. Decades of quiet finally answers for Susan Day about the complex and emotional relationship she shared with her Partridge Family co-star, David Cassidy. On screen as Laurie and Keith Partridge, their chemistry enthralled millions of fans across the 1970s and made them one of the most favorite brother-sister pairs on television. But offstage, their relationship was extremely complex, tainted by friendship, tenderness, misunderstandings, and heartache. Now, in her 70s, Susan Day has looked back on those years with unflinching candor, providing the clarity and kindness that only distance and time can give. She reminisced about the early days of the Partridge Family warmly and nostalgically. "We were just kids," she stated, Everything was new: fame, the attention, the music. It was exciting and dizzying all at once. With no TV experience as a young model turned actress, Day was cast at the age of 17, whereas Cassidy had prior experience in show business, having grown up in a renowned musical family. David was very charming, she confessed. He possessed that glamour that made everyone gravitate towards him. When he entered a room, you couldn't help but notice him. It was during the show's first few seasons that their friendship developed rapidly. They spent hours upon hours on location together, rehearsing lines, taping songs, and shooting endless family scenes that would become a generational touchstone. Yet Susan said her feelings for David intensified with time. "I had a crush on him. Of course I did," she admitted. "He was nice, talented, and nice to me when I was still getting my bearings." But her love was not returned in all the ways she had dreamed. Cassidy, in the peak of his teen heartthrob status, was bombarded by attention from adoring public, and romantic relationships were a part of his persona. David was living a totally different life behind the camera, explained Day. He was being pulled in 100 different directions, and I don't think either of us knew how to handle that level of fame at that age. When she afterwards found out that Cassidy had talked about her crush in a magazine interview, recalling it quite cavalierly, Day felt wounded. "I felt betrayed," she said softly. "It wasn't that he didn't feel the same way about me. It was that he took something personal and made it a headline. That was unforgivable." Even as an emotional distance came between them, Day kept her professional and gracious demeanor on set. She went on delivering strong performances, keeping the Partridge Family a wholesome but engaging escape for viewers. "We kept the spirit of the show alive," she said. "Whatever was happening off camera, the Partridges needed to be like a real family. I believe that's what sustained all of us." Following the cancellation of the show in 1974, Day moved away from the Partridge Family heritage. While Cassidy was fond of his musical life and frequently looked back on his TV career during interviews and concerts, Day hardly mentioned it. "I had to get over it," she confessed. "I didn't want to be defined by that one moment of my life, however significant it was." She instead established a successful acting career, primarily as Grace Van Owen on L.A. Law, a performance which won her a Golden Globe Award and a number of Emmy nominations. In time, bitterness that she had for Cassidy mellowed into sympathy. "Looking back now, I realize we were both just trying to survive that whirlwind," she said. "He had so much pressure on him, more than people ever knew." Day also admitted that she regretted not making amends with Cassidy prior to his death in 2017. "I wish we had talked one more time," she cried. "There were things left unsaid, apologies, maybe even forgiveness, but life doesn't always give you that chance." Today, Day reflects on her time with Cassidy with both affection and sorrow. "David will always be a part of my story," she said. "We grew up together in a way, even if it was under very strange and public circumstances. I'll always cherish the laughter, the long filming days, the music. Those were special years." Her honest disclosures present a woman who has come to terms with her history and is able to look upon it through the eyes of maturity and experience. Susan Day's reality with David Cassidy isn't a scandal. It's a tale of youth stardom and the tenuous connections that unite and divide people in the glare of the spotlight. As she herself put it so well, "We were young, we made mistakes, and we lived a dream that millions of people shared with us." I'll always be grateful for that. Now 72, Susan Day has opted for grace rather than bitterness, reflection rather than regret. Her candor is a reminder to fans that beneath the gleaming television facade is a very human narrative of love, loss, forgiveness, and the abiding strength of memory.